The aircraft data link message lay beneath a clear evidence sleeve, its thermal paper divided by a red preservation label, while Captain Eric Halden held the corners inside Operations Room B12 under white inspection lights, across from the airline's compliance director, as Renee Holloway stood with both hands resting beside her unopened handbag, and the dispatch staff kept their coffee cups level. At 9:24, the message status was delivered. The security report field read Identity Verification Refused. Halden looked at the printout as though the system had changed his words after he sent them. 7 minutes earlier, Renee had been trying to finish breakfast. A paper cup of coffee sat in the holder beside her first-class seat on North Star Crest Airlines Flight 724. Her sister had sent a photograph of 8 relatives crowded around a dining table in Atlanta, with one empty plate near the window. Renee typed that boarding had finished and that she would arrive before dessert, then placed the phone beneath her boarding receipt. The premium cabin followed a familiar sequence. Megan Price welcomed a gray-haired consultant by name, confirmed his meal selection, and placed his jacket in the forward closet. She offered a second passenger sparkling water before the safety demonstration. A third received help connecting his tablet to the airline's enterprise Wi-Fi. Renee received a folded napkin. Across the aisle, Howard Dean, a retired transit union steward wearing a brown work coat, watched Megan pass his raised hand twice. He lowered it the second time and opened the paperback resting on his knees. Renee waited until Megan returned with the beverage cart. "Could you confirm whether breakfast service is still authorized before departure?" Megan's hand remained on the cart handle. "We are preparing the cabin." "I understand. I'm asking because the passengers in the first row have already been served." The ice shifted inside the metal drawer. Megan glanced toward the cockpit door. Captain's preference. A woman seated behind Renee stopped scrolling but kept her phone face down on her tray. Julia Parks, a procurement compliance attorney traveling to a contract review, removed a pen from her folder without writing. Renee looked at the embroidered name above Megan's pocket. Is that an operational restriction or a service decision? Megan pressed the cart brake with her shoe. "I'll get the captain." The cockpit door opened less than a minute later. Captain Halden stepped into the aisle with his jacket buttoned, his wings level, and his flight tablet tucked beneath one arm. He greeted the consultant beside Renee before looking down at her seat. "I'm told there's a problem. I asked whether service had been suspended. It hasn't. Then I'd like the same service already provided to the other passengers." Halden's eyes moved from her coffee cup to her handbag, then to the boarding pass beneath her phone. "May I see identification?" Renee left her hands where they were. "What is the verification basis?" The question slowed him. "This is an aircraft. I determine what creates concern. I have not refused a crew instruction." Identification. Renee opened her wallet, removed her state driver's license, and held it between 2 fingers. Her blouse remained tucked beneath her navy jacket. Her carry-on stayed closed beneath the seat. Howard marked his page with one thumb. Julia wrote the time at the top of a blank sheet. Halden took the license and studied the photograph longer than the printed fields. "Where are you traveling?" "My destination is on the passenger record." "That was not my question." "Atlanta. For what purpose?" Renee's fingers tightened once against the edge of the armrest. "Personal travel. Is that required for verification?" Halden turned the license over. Megan stood behind him with the service cart still locked in place. She could have said that Renee had boarded through the same document check as every other passenger. She looked at the galley floor instead. Halden bent the license between both hands. Julia's pen stopped. "Captain," Renee said, "that document has already been verified. Please return it." He pressed his thumbs into the center seam. The plastic cracked beneath the state seal, and the license separated into 2 uneven pieces over Renee's unopened breakfast tray. The 2 halves of Renee Holloway's license rested on the tray between the untouched coffee and the folded napkin. Captain Eric Halden placed them there. "Your identification could not be verified." Renee looked at the photograph, the state seal, the split barcode. "You verified it before you damaged it." Halden turned toward the galley. "Megan, document the refusal." Megan Price released the brake on the service card, moved it 6 inches, then stopped. "She gave you the card." "I said document the refusal." Julia Parks wrote both sentences beneath the time. Renee lifted neither piece. Please identify what I refused. Halden opened the flight tablet. His thumb moved through the security dashboard, past the passenger record, and into the incident menu. You refused to cooperate with identity verification. I provided identification. You are holding the result. Howard Dean closed his paperback. I saw her hand it to you. Halden glanced across the aisle. Stay out of this. Howard placed the book on his lap. Add me as a witness. The word changed Megan's posture. Her fingers left the cart handle. Halden selected a Level 2 security report and entered Renee's seat number. The incident type locked after submission. The narrative field remained editable until dispatch accepted it. Renee watched the screen angle reflected in the dark window. Please provide the report number. You'll receive information after landing. I am requesting the number while the record is being created. Halden did not answer. He returned to the cockpit and sent a data link message to airline dispatch. Passenger presented state identification. No physical threat. Captain requesting ground support for document concern. The aircraft system attached the tail number, the cockpit terminal identifier, the send time, and a delivery acknowledgement. Dispatch could add a note. It could not replace the original text. Halden received the acknowledgement. Then he reopened the security report. Under identity verification, he selected refused. Under passenger conduct, he selected non-compliant. The first entry protected the second. When he returned to the cabin, Julia was still writing. What exactly are you recording? He asked. The sequence. This is airline business. It became witness information when you instructed an employee to enter something I heard was false. Megan's service tablet lit with a cabin closeout request. One field required confirmation that premium service had been completed without exception. Her pen hovered over the screen. Halden pointed toward Renee. She will remain seated until airport police arrive. Renee's shoulders shifted against the seatback. Her family message remained unanswered beneath the boarding receipt. On what legal basis am I being held after the identification check returned no threat? You are being held because I am the captain. That states your position. It does not state the basis. The forward door opened after landing at Peachtree International. Sergeant Elena Ruiz entered with an airport operations officer and asked Halden for the security classification. Identity refusal with escalating behavior. Julia looked down at her page. Howard looked at Megan. Renee said, My identification was presented, examined, and destroyed. I am requesting independent verification and preservation of the aircraft data link message. Ruiz examined the two pieces on the tray. Who damaged this? Halden answered after a pause. The document separated during inspection. Julia capped her pen. That is not the sequence I recorded. Ruiz requested the dispatch response, the report number, and the verification result. Halden provided the report number. He did not provide the result. At Operations Room B12, Compliance Manager Felicia Grant logged into the dispatch archive and printed the original data link message. The thermal paper emerged line by line. Passenger presented state identification. No physical threat. Delivery acknowledged at 9:24. Felicia placed the printout beneath a clear evidence sleeve and attached a red preservation label. Halden read his own words. Ruiz used the interagency duty desk callback listed in Renee's damaged wallet. The secure response confirmed that Renee was a special agent with the United States Department of Transportation Office of Inspector General, traveling on personal leave. The title opened a review. It did not change the evidence. Megan's tablet displayed the cabin closeout field again. She selected Unable to Certify, entered her employee code, and attached a statement describing the license, the service disparity, and the captain's instruction. Halden looked from her screen to the preserved printout. Felicia placed the security report beside the data link message. One says she refused identification, she said. The other says she presented it. Her hand remained on the certification stamp. Which document do you want this company to certify? The operational integrity hearing began with the preserved data link message sealed at the center of the table. Felicia Grant read the chronology without interpretation. At 9:17, Renee Holloway requested the same premium service provided to other passengers. At 9:21, she presented a valid state driver's license. At 9:23, Captain Eric Halden damaged it. At 9:24, his cockpit terminal reported that the passenger had presented identification and posed no physical threat. At 9:27, he submitted a Level 2 security report stating that identity verification had been refused. The airline's chief risk officer placed one finger beside the conflicting entries. Who could edit the data link message after delivery? No one, Felicia said. Dispatch could attach a note. The aircraft identifier, terminal identifier, original text, delivery acknowledgement, and coordinated timestamp were immutable. How long was it retained? 180 days under the dispatch archive rule. The preservation notice suspended normal deletion. Halden's attorney described the report as an attempt to manage uncertainty. The contract auditor asked Halden to identify that uncertainty. Halden looked at the damaged license inside its evidence pouch. She challenged my authority. That is not an identity result. He shifted to Renee's questions, then to the service dispute, then to the possibility that the card had been altered. Each explanation required a different sequence. None matched the message he had sent before opening the report. His own record remained on the table. Megan Price sat at the far end with her employee badge beside her statement. "You saw the identification presented?" the risk officer asked. "Yes." "You heard the captain order you to document a refusal?" "Yes." "Why did you not correct him immediately?" Megan pressed her thumbnail into the edge of the badge. "He controlled my flight assignments and performance reviews. I believed opposing him in the cabin would end my promotion path." Did that fear make the entry accurate? No. Her later addendum preserved the sequence. It did not erase the time when she had allowed Halden's version to stand. The panel terminated Halden for cause for intentional document destruction, falsification of a security record, and misuse of passenger classification authority. His passenger security certification was withdrawn, his dashboard access was suspended, and the matter was referred for an independent aviation certificate review. Before leaving, Halden returned his flight tablet to the equipment desk. He pressed his employee badge against the security console to open his files. The reader flashed amber. Access suspended. Felicia's screen remained active across the room. The data link message was still visible. Halden could no longer enter the system that preserved his words. Megan received an unpaid suspension and lost lead cabin sign-off authority for 6 months. The panel credited her refusal to certify the false closeout. It also found that her earlier silence had allowed an unsupported allegation to move toward law enforcement. North Star Crest Airlines faced a consequence larger than either employee. The Federal Travel Office suspended the airline from bidding on preferred carrier routes until an external auditor verified its reporting controls. The airline's contract risk insurer excluded the incident from ordinary operational coverage because the record showed intentional misconduct rather than an accidental service failure. The cost could not be transferred to a routine claim. Renee's security report had already reached airline security, airport police, and the Federal Travel Risk Database. Each recipient received the preserved chronology, and each copy was locked with the same correction. Unsupported. Identification was presented. Passenger posed no physical threat. The original false entry remained visible in the revision history. It could not be erased and quietly replaced. The airline reimbursed Renee for the replacement license, ground transportation, and the family meal she missed. The payment did not repair the document or return the evening. It placed the loss in the company ledger instead of leaving it with her. The deeper repair began inside the reporting software. Any identity refusal report now pulled the gate verification result and all aircraft data link messages into the same review screen. A contradiction generated an independent audit ticket. The report could not reach police, insurance, or a contract risk database until someone outside the cockpit chain reconciled it. Passenger conduct labels required observed behavior. Terms such as difficult, challenging, and suspicious were removed from the selectable fields. Overrides required dual approval. Every revision remained visible. 3 weeks later, Felicia tested the new workflow with a simulated report. Identity refused appeared in the first field. Identification presented appeared in the dispatch record. The dashboard locked the submission, preserved both entries, and routed the contradiction to compliance. At the motor vehicle office, a clerk passed Renee's replacement license through the opening beneath the glass. Renee checked the barcode, placed the card behind the receipt, and tucked both beside 8 family photographs in her wallet. A family message appeared on her phone. Dinner next Sunday. Same seat saved. She typed one word. Confirmed. Should Megan's late refusal count as courage, mitigation, or delayed responsibility? And should the airline have acted before a federal contract was placed at risk? This story is fictional.